How good did that one feel to kind of get off the schneid after 10 games there?
Yeah, it felt good. I felt like I was putting myself in good chances the previous games before, so I was just trying to stay positive and keep shooting.
Hey man, were you thinking about it at all? Just the point streak and all, not having a point for a while?
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely on your mind a little bit. I try not to worry about it, and I was just trying to play my game and keep doing good things, and eventually it was going to come.
How fun is it to play with Nate? And I think he told us that he kind of told you had to score that one after the offside snap.
Yeah, it is. It's fun to play with him. Obviously he's a great player, and I feel like we read off each other pretty well. Yeah, I feel like I did owe him a little bit for going offside, so that was a good one.
See, Emmitt, 20 games now into your NHL career here. I know you're never going to get too comfortable, but just how do you feel as far as the comfort levels certainly has to be increasing now a quarter way through the season?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I'm pretty confident out there, and the game's starting to slow down for me, and I feel like I'm able to make more plays. So the comfort level is definitely there.
Seems like the last 2 wins have been team wins. What have you liked about the way this group has played over the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's been great. I thought the game in New York was one of our best games, if not our best game all season. So, that's been a priority of us is, been trying to play a full 60 minutes, and I feel like we've done that the last 2 games.
What have you learned about handling the grind just off the ice of playing so regularly?
Yeah, it's been difficult so far. You play almost every other day, so you really got to take care of your body, and I've been listening to the trainers, and I've been trying to eat good so I can manage my body.
Hey, does it help having other guys in the same boat, kind of like you, kind of like first year, and just going through the ropes for the first time like that?
Yeah, I think so. It's good to have some guys my own age. With Danny and Nate and even Marco, those are guys I like to hang out with off the ice, and some of my best buddies. So it's been fun with them.
Do you remember playing against Danny in like youth leagues or something?
Yeah, I grew up playing against him pretty much from age 7 till I was 12 or something. So I definitely had some good battles with him growing up.
When did you guys start building a relationship and becoming friends?
Yeah, we played a little bit when we were younger, and my brother played with them a little bit. So I kind of knew him from that, and then when we both got drafted here, that kind of just our relationship started to build from there.
You talked about kind of the grind, and a lot of guys will mention kind of having a B game when they know they don't have maybe their best on a given night. What are the things for you that kind of would define what you want to bring every night, regardless if you have your best or not?
Yeah, I feel like I want to get on the forecheck, manage the puck, get hits, get shots, just try to buzz around on the ice, and try to create little plays all over the game.
Todd, a light practice out there today, was that planned long ahead or kind of reaction to this?
No, not a reaction, but just looking back and ahead. We have a science department that gives us numbers and tracks gas tanks. We just played 4 and 6 with some travel. We're going to play 5 and 8. And we're going to play 6 and 10, and we're going to have more travel. And we know that we're skating on Friday because we play a 1 o'clock game on Saturday. So it's all kind of laid out a week in advance, and took advantage of what we could today. There were some guys that maybe their numbers were a little lower, and the ones that were running higher didn't skate. They did some work in the gym, and we practiced off the ice today with some video and some direction that way.
And what do you like about Emmitt's game, even when he isn't scoring?
Well, I'll use the same word as I did for Danny last night. He's a pretty trusting player right now. His legs are his biggest asset. His ability to close on the opposition, whether they have the puck or they don't, is something that's been a real beneficial thing for our team, and that energy is contagious. So he's brought that almost every night. He's still learning that there's times during the game where you got to be really sharp, whether it's the beginning of the game or near the end. But he's one of them that you talk to once and the problem seems to go away. So that's a real good sign for a young player.
Todd, you touched on this a little bit yesterday, but just a quarter way through the season, have you seen this much parity in the league before? Seems like, I think last week you were out of a playoff spot. a few games later, you're in first place. It seems like teams are much closer together than before.
Yeah, I would, I would agree. You look at the standings and if you're on the top of the mountain, you're really not on top of the mountain. You're in the middle of the forest. Like, it's so tight. There may be a little changing of the guard. Some of the powerhouses, maybe getting a little older. Some of the teams that were trying to climb that mountain may be catching up. So it is really tight, but it's only 20 games. That's why when you get into those last 10 or 12 games and you're 6 or 8 points in or out, that's a significant number to make up with 3-point nights. So you got to manage every segment and get the best out of your team, and we're trying to do that. We'll start a new 10-game one tomorrow, and it's important that we take more points than we give away.
We'll be asking you next week, but are you a big believer in the Thanksgiving theory, the what Ken Holland theory about whoever?
I have been in the past. I think the numbers, stack up, and the percentages say, there's a lot to that, but it's not 100% accurate. And this year, it's probably going to get tested based on where we're at.
How much have you seen of what's tomorrow against the Islanders, the Schaefer kid? I mean, have you seen him? And then segueing to that, Todd, some of these kids like Celebrini, Bedard, why are some of these kids so ready to dominate in the NHL like the way they're doing?
Well, the Schaefer, the Schaefer player we saw once already, and watched a lot of them in video and that type of stuff. You see him live. We'll all see him tomorrow night. He's a pretty dynamic player. They're fortunate to have him as a club, but also a community, to be able to watch him play night in and night out for a lot of years. As far as some of these younger players, it's that, it was Crosby and Ovechkin, and then it got passed on. I'll miss some generations, but obviously the Leon, McKinnon, McDavid, Matthews, Eichel generation, and now we're seeing this next one come through, and it takes them a year or two to really establish themselves. Now they are the go-to players. They've figured the NHL out, and they're that skilled and that talented. They have, I've always said this, the young players have courage to do things and attempt things, and they use that courage and become pretty dynamic. I think many generations ago, sometimes that was squashed, and you have to wait your turn almost. You let the veterans do their thing, and then you have to wait your turn, and if you were still around and you still had those skills, then it started to come out. But now it's coming out much earlier.
I know when you're forming lines, especially mid-game, you're just trying to win the game, but Finnie and Danielson have some history together, playing against each other, and I think play together. How much can you tell kind of their chemistry together, and can you see them complementing each other well?
When we put them together, that wasn't even considered. It wasn't a thought. I didn't know how much they played minor hockey together or against each other. I only knew, or we only, not I, we only knew what we saw here, and we thought that they would complement each other. And for one, 2 periods in one night, they did a real good job. We expect that to continue, but I can't see why they couldn't play with each other. Both fairly smart players. One can not necessarily slow the game down. One plays real fast. The other plays a little bit more of a mind game. So I think they can complement and continue to play with each other and be successful.
I know there's kind of always an idea that you want to put young guys with veteran guys, but is there ever a world where 2 young guys that are at the same point in their career where that can be a benefit to have them together?
Well, you've heard kid lines. I think the Oilers would, I don't know if it was Adam Graves and Jimmy Carson and Martin Jellin. I think those were the 3. Like, that was a kid line. They went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, and I think they won, or they were, my history may not be great, but if I remember correctly, those 3 guys played at a very young age, and they played real well together. Obviously, they had long careers, so if you keep putting an age on a player, you got to see them for the player they are. Because you're 27 or 28 years old, that doesn't mean you're the go-to guy. There may be a 22-year-old that's playing better or gives the team more. So age is, I don't know if age is a good barrier anymore. Just take a look at the player and see what you have.
After that Buffalo game, you had spoke to the group about tightening things up defensively. Over these last 2 games, what has stood out to you in terms of some of those areas that, is there a more conscious effort in some areas in terms of defense? What have you seen from
Game
that?
management. It's the last 6 periods have been night and day different than 7 periods ago. That 7th period against Buffalo was, I think we've hashed that out enough and keep bringing it up. But our game management in the last 6 periods has been boatloads better. And, I think we've given up 1 5-on-5 goal in that time. So we can do it if we're willing to pay attention to it and make it a priority, which has happened over the last 6 periods, but again, it has to continue.
Is everyone available tomorrow?
I'm not sure if Elmer will be still. Elmer's been fighting an injury. He hasn't been available to us, so he skated today. We'll see how he is, but doubtful. Gibson tomorrow. Okay.
Yep.